And I know DC was saying it's a big adrenaline dump combined with quite a hectic weight cut. What do you read into that?
Yeah, I think this whole weight cut excuse is ridiculous, to be honest with you. I mean, they said, I think Tsarukyan said he cut 12 pounds in the 24 hours.
Yeah.
Those are rookie numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, 12 pounds in 24 hours, that's not that bad.
I think it was 46 in total.
In total, but yeah. I mean, over the camp, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What matters is that last 24 hours, and 12 pounds is not that much. I mean, I definitely got more than that, and yeah, sometimes I've had bad weight cuts too.
Dricus du Plessis just said something that a lot of people in the MMA world are not going to want to hear. And honestly, he didn't sugarcoat a single word of it. Because right now, the conversation surrounding Khamzat Chimaev's first professional loss is going in a direction that du Plessis finds completely unacceptable. People are pointing fingers at the weight cut. They're saying Boers walked into that cage already defeated before the first punch was thrown. That the scale broke him before Tsarukyan ever could. And du Plessis? He's heard enough. But before we get into what the former middleweight champion had to say, let's make sure we understand exactly what's being claimed here, because context matters. Arman Tsarukyan, the man who handed Chimaev that first career loss, came out publicly and said something remarkable after the fight. He admitted that during the weight cut, Khamzat Chimaev wanted to stop, wanted to quit the process entirely. Tsarukyan said Chimaev had to be pushed through it by his team because of how badly it was affecting him physically. Now, that's a serious statement. That's not a cornerman venting after a tough night. That's the winner of the fight, essentially saying his opponent showed up compromised. And that narrative has been picking up steam ever since those words came out. Chimaev's own team added more fuel to that fire. They explained that Khamzat started his training camp carrying more weight than usual because there had been conversations with the UFC about a potential move up to light heavyweight. So when those plans didn't materialize the way they expected, he was already behind on the cut heading into fight week. By the time he was in that sauna, grinding those final pounds off, his body was not responding the way it normally would. His team made it very clear this was not a normal weight cut situation for him. And look, anyone who follows combat sports closely understands that a brutal weight cut doesn't just disappear overnight. You rehydrate, yes. You eat, yes. But there are fighters who have spoken openly about how a truly punishing cut can leave you feeling hollow the next day. Legs that don't respond. A gas tank that empties faster than it should. A chin that isn't quite as sharp. These are real physiological consequences. The argument being made by those in Chimaev's corner isn't completely without basis in the world of sports science. But here's where Dricus du Plessis steps in and completely reframes the entire conversation. Du Plessis was speaking on Fight Forecast when this topic came up, and he was direct in a way that only he can be. He called the weight cut excuse, and I'm using his words here, ridiculous. Not questionable. Not exaggerated. Ridiculous. He pointed specifically to the numbers being thrown around. Tsarukyan mentioned that Chimaev had to cut 12 pounds in that final 24-hour window before the fight. And du Plessis looked at that figure and essentially said, that's it? 12 pounds in 24 hours? He called those rookie numbers. He said he has personally cut more than that himself. He acknowledged that everyone who cuts weight has gone through a rough cut at some point in their career. That morning after feeling where your body feels completely wrecked and you're questioning every decision you've ever made. He's been there. Most fighters at the elite level have been there. But here's his point, and it's worth listening to carefully. He said that blaming a bad weight cut is the same as saying you lost a fight because you weren't fit enough. And whose fault is that? Yours. He was unambiguous about it. Be more disciplined. That was his conclusion. Not sympathetic, not softened, just direct accountability. Now, du Plessis was also careful to say this isn't something he's applying only to Chimaev specifically. He said this is how he views any reason a fighter gives for why they lost. He doesn't accept excuses, full stop. Whether it's a weight cut, an injury, a training camp disruption, or anything else, if you step into that cage, you own whatever happens. That's the code he operates by, and he holds everyone else to the same standard. And honestly, that perspective is going to divide people. because on one hand, there is something deeply respectable about that level of personal accountability. The idea that you don't give yourself an exit ramp, that you prepare so thoroughly, so meticulously, that when you lose, you don't reach for reasons outside your control. You look inward. You fix it. That's a champion's mentality in its purest form. But on the other hand, some people will argue that ignoring the physical reality of what extreme weight cutting does to the human body isn't accountability. It's denial. That there's a difference between making excuses and acknowledging legitimate variables that affect athletic performance. What's not up for debate, though, is what happened inside that cage. And Du Plessis actually gave credit where he felt it was due on that front. He pointed specifically to Sean Strickland's role in this outcome. Because remember, Chimaev didn't fight Strickland that night, but Strickland had already fought him. And Du Plessis believes that Strickland did real damage to Chimaev's gas tank. That the grinding, relentless, physically taxing style that Strickland brought forced Chimaev to work harder than he wanted to, depleted something in him. And that Tsarukyan was the one who inherited the benefits of that effort. That's an interesting angle, because it shifts some of the credit for Chimaev's loss away from Tsarukyan and places it partially on Strickland's performance in a previous fight. Du Plessis sees it as a combination of factors, but none of those factors, in his view, excuse what happened. You prepare for the fight you're in, not the fight you wish you were in. Now here's where things get really interesting for the middleweight division going forward. Chimaev has made it known that he wants a rematch. He's been open about the fact that there are unanswered questions in his mind about that performance. He wants to go back, correct the errors, prove the first result was an anomaly. That's understandable. That's a competitor refusing to let a loss define them. Most fans would respect that impulse. Du Plessis does not. He was clear and cold about it. Chimaev doesn't deserve a rematch, and his reasoning is straightforward. Khamzat Chimaev held a championship belt and never defended it. Not once. He won the title, and the next time he fought, he lost it. 0 title defenses. And in Du Plessis's view, that record simply does not justify being handed a rematch clause. You earn rematches. You don't automatically receive them because you're a big name or because you have a compelling story about a difficult weight cut. This is actually a point that has real merit when you look at how rematches have historically been handled in the sport. Fighters who defend their belts multiple times, who prove they can sustain excellence over a period of time, who build a body of work as champion. Those fighters have an argument for an immediate rematch if they lose. Chimaev never built that body of work. He won the belt and dropped it on the first defense attempt. Du Plessis also dropped something near the end of his appearance on Fight Forecast that has the fan base buzzing right now. He teased that he's expecting an announcement about his next fight to come out this week. He didn't give details. He didn't name names. But the implication is clear. The former champion is not sitting on the sidelines watching others dictate the direction of the division. So where does all of this leave us? Chimaev wants a rematch that the former champion thinks he hasn't earned. The weight cut narrative is dominating post-fight conversation, while the actual chess match inside the cage is getting less attention than it deserves. And Dricus du Plessis is somewhere in the background, apparently about to make his presence felt again in a major way. The middleweight division has never been more chaotic, more unpredictable, or more entertaining. And whatever you think about the weight cut debate, one thing is certain: Du Plessis is not going to let anyone forget that in his view, what happens on fight night is entirely on the fighter. No asterisks, no footnotes. You either prepared or you didn't. And that, whether you agree with him or not, is a standard that demands respect.